So Regina has a really big group of people that are taking care of themselves in ways that, many of us don't. Um, Last week, I had Amanda Rashinsky on, who talks about a lot of the yoga that's going on in the city and Reiki. And today I have a naturopath, Dr. Julie Zella. I'm so happy to have you on. This is her second time on the show, and she offers a wealth of information that I found so interesting last time she was on the show. So before we dig into it, I do want to just kind of preface it with saying, so what was the name of your naturopath store? Office here in the city? I don't want to call it a store because it's not that.
Well, we do have a store, in all fairness. So I own Prairie Sky Integrative Health. And Prairie Sky Integrative Health is a multidisciplinary integrative health center. We're located in the Cathedral area on Robinson Street. And we've been there since 2012. So it's been over a decade now serving.
It's a really great location, right by the Safeway. I love it. I used to live right there.
Yeah, it is. It's a wonderful it's wonderful to be a part of that village.
It's a community there.
Yeah, and there's 13 of us actually who work in the building. So there's 5 naturopathic doctors. We've got a couple of massage therapists, an osteopath, a social worker, a woman who specializes in breath work, some somatic experiencing, which treats a lot of the physical trauma that's stored, or trauma that's stored in the physical body. So it's quite an eclectic group that we've got. It's a really beautiful clinic, and it is in a sense a store because we do sell high quality supplements, protein powders, multivitamins, minerals, things like that people come in and purchase.
So perfect. I wasn't wrong. But I really think that Regina, the more I've done this radio show and the more that I've talked to people within our community, we have some wonderful, wonderful resources that I hope that people are taking advantage of. Because I find when we go to the doctor or have a sore throat or something like that, you go to the doctor, you're with them for 2 seconds and you leave. And that's kind of the experience I've had. I know a lot of people, and I've had the same doctor my whole life. And I really never get to dive into anything. It's always a quick fix. And I'll tell you guys a personal one for me. I'm 43.
You're still young.
I know, but still things are changing, and I was getting acne again, like grown-up acne. I'm sure it's a sign of some other stuff going on, sure. So I asked my doctor, I won't tell you guys his name. Well, I really am having some things going on with my hormones. I'm wondering what we should do. Well, let's put you back on birth control. I'm like, I fought my whole life not to be on birth control. And now that I'm done having kids, that's what we're going to do, even though my husband and I don't need that. And it just didn't seem like he wanted to go down any paths with me and didn't want to take the time. So I know this is a long tangent, but I remember when you talked about what you guys do, you sit and you listen and you talk to people and you figure out details that maybe our regular doctors that we go to, our clinics might not have the time for right now because they're strained or overworked or whatever. So this is another tool for a lot of us that we should be taking advantage of. My husband works at FCC. It's covered. Mm-hmm. So you'd be surprised. A lot of this stuff isn't not paid for. You don't have to pay for. So any case, I'm sorry I went on that tangent, but I just really think that these types of tools can help a lot of people, and they might not know about it because they're not, born and raised in Regina, or a slew of other reasons that they don't even know these things exist.
Yeah, well, thank you for bringing that into the conversation, and I do agree, and unfortunately I don't, it's not often the sort of the fault of a lot of general practitioners in the medical system. Yeah. There's so many things about the system in general that are quite unhealthy, and the training of conventional doctors is very different than the training of naturopathic doctors. And so, there's that expression, you can't get blood from a stone. I think that it's really important that we realize sometimes we go to certain professionals who are very, very good professionals, right? They just don't necessarily have the answers that we are seeking. And it's not necessarily of any fault to them. It's just a fault of the system in general. And so with naturopathic doctors, people who come to naturopathic medicine, like myself, as a profession, are those of us who really have a sincere and deep belief in the body's ability to heal itself, that every single thing that the body does is just its way of trying to get our attention, right? So when your face is breaking out in adult acne, something's just trying to get your attention, right? You know, there could be a food that your body's not liking, right? Your liver might be overburdened and it's not happy with how much, you know, alcohol you've been drinking, or there might be some sort of, like you said, hormonal shifts going on. And so symptoms are just our body's way of talking to us. And in the naturopathic profession, that's what we learn. That's our training. Is our job is to help to decode a person's body of what they're trying to tell, their bodies are trying to tell them, and what they need. Because, you know, you might not necessarily realize that, but that's what we're meant to do, is act as interpreters of that. So we get really curious about symptoms. We don't just try to take them away, right? Like, oh, we just got to get that acne away. Of course we want to help you get that acne away because you're not enjoying it, but we want to work with your body to find out why it's expressing itself in that way. And so that's where we really have the benefit, because we don't work in a system that there's disadvantages of not working in a publicly funded system, because the disadvantages, people do have to pay out of pocket. And that is, you know, kind of a difficult thing to realize when you work in private medicine, right? So there are ways around it. A lot of us do sliding scales, and thankfully a lot of health insurance plans, like you alluded to, cover our care. So it's always worth looking into that. There's often buckets of money that people have sitting around in their health spending plans that aren't being utilized. You know, chunks for naturopathic medicine, chunks for massage therapy, chiropractic. You know, we know about the dental coverages, but we don't necessarily go to explore the other coverages. So there are ways around that. The benefits of working in a private system is that we don't have anyone dictating how long we spend with our patients or how many patients we need to spend in a day. So that allows us the opportunity to give someone the time and care and attention that they need, so that we can get to the bottom of things, so that we know the whole person. It's interesting that you mentioned that about the skin, because just this morning I was in 13th Avenue Coffee House, just down the street from my clinic, and a woman that I knew walked in, and she was just like, hey, I don't know if you treat skin things, but I was just wondering. And then I was like, well, truth be told, I treat people. I don't treat conditions. So it doesn't matter what condition someone has, I'm treating the person, right? It's the person I care about. It's not the condition. And again, that's naturopathic medicine. So we're looking at the individual, and that means we put you all together. That we don't, your skin isn't disconnected from your stomach aches in our world.
I think that's a really, really great philosophy to have. So with that philosophy, could you explain to me, like, what a day in the life of Julie is like? Because I wonder who you see and what you do, and like how you like shift from being like maybe you know, at home to the office to like after work. Well, how does it all work?
Well, that's a really fun question, and thank you for asking that question. And I would say I'm going to start that question that has to do with a day in the life of Julie, as opposed to just me as a day in the life of me in the clinic, because the type of work that I do, it's fundamentally important, I believe, that we practice what we preach, because then we can really stand behind the things we're asking our people to do. Because it's not easy all the time to say no to certain foods that aren't good for our bodies, or to take time off from work, you know, because we've been conditioned to believe that's not okay to do, but that's maybe what we need to do, or that it's healthier to work part-time instead of full-time in order to manage the things that we manage. And so I appreciate that I'm also a human living in a body, right, for almost 50 years now. And so for me, my self-care really does come first. And I do believe that that's important, because when it does, then I'm resourced with the energy and the brain power, no matter what stage of my life I'm in, right, to be able to then be of service to the people that I see, which does mean that I have to make decisions for self-care.
So you have to take care of yourself before you can take care of other people, I'm hearing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Crazy thought.
And we know that we don't always do it, right?
Yes.
And so again, for me, because I know it can be difficult, I believe it's important that I that I lead that, so that people can see that it is possible. So for me, I don't typically start my days with patients until 10 o'clock.
Okay.
Because for me, I want to be able to get my workout in. I want to be able to have a little bit of time for meditation. So for me, my 2 deal breakers in my day, no matter what I have going on, are I've got to move my body some way, shape, or form. And I have to sit even 5 minutes in the morning in prayer and meditation. I like to do longer, but it doesn't always happen. But I can always negotiate 5 minutes, and the whole rest of my day unfolds very differently when I do that. So that's really important to me. Luckily, I'm a morning person, so I don't have problems getting up at 5 or 5:30. And then spending time with my kids before they go to school.
Yes.
That's important to me. And then I have admin stuff because I do run a clinic and I run a practice and I have lab results to review. And so take a couple of hours, to do that before I sit down and I'm ready to see people that I see.
That's a great way to not feel rushed, I bet, too, because if you didn't have that couple hours to negotiate for yourself, you'd be just right into the mix of it right from the beginning.
That's exactly it. And I've seen that. I see that a lot. People just hit the road running. And I have to say that we learn from experience. I went through a very significant burnout myself when I was going to naturopathic medical school 24 years ago. And I reached the point where I couldn't walk up the stairs because I would roll out of bed, I'd go for a run, I'd go to class. I didn't allow for a lot of other time spent to be able to really invest in slowness. Like going for runs clearly is an investment in me, but it's also a bit of a withdrawal. It's still intense. And then bolting right from there to the shower, to the class, to work, to homework, to,
Yeah.
It was a treadmill of that. I learned in my late 20s that I couldn't live on. It wasn't sustainable.
Yes.
So I had to make decisions for myself that supported my life and lifestyle. And it's not always easy because when you like to do things and like to, accomplish things, then you're sort of fighting a tide too.
Those types of experience, and once you've felt that, it's like then all of a sudden you understand the need for tools, like to make yourself self-regulate and take care of yourself. I myself too, like I burnt out hard. I knew what yoga was, but it was more of an exercise for me, not the mental thing. So I had to shift how I did yoga and a few other tools for myself. Now I do pottery at home, and I do that first thing in the morning because that's the way that I ground myself. And it's just some peace and quiet before I have to have a busy day. And if I don't do that, my energy is at a higher level all day long, and I have a shorter fuse. And with the little ones, I don't have the patience then. So I find those days where I use those tools to make myself calmer, and I'm a better mom.
Exactly. That's exactly it. And really we do live in a society, in a culture that really breeds the sort of set of habits, I guess, that says, well, I'll do that when I have time. I'll do the pottery when I have time. I'll do the breath work when I have time. But again, we live in an environment that will never have the time. There's always going to be something that's going to come onto our plate and take that time up. So when we don't give ourselves what I call those deposits, right? When we're constantly withdrawing, then that's when we become depleted. So when somebody comes to me and they say, oh my God, you have to help me with my rage, my short fuse, and I hear that they're not doing anything for themselves, right? And they're running ragged. It's like, well, we can't out supplement those lifestyle practices. You need to pause and see what you need to do to change the balance in your life, to give you more deposits. And not to say that supplements aren't helpful. There are things that can help to raise serotonin levels and decrease sort of that irritation. But I know for myself, it's funny that you mentioned that. Back in December, I went through a time period where I had just gotten back from a trip to Egypt.
Oh, wow.
It was phenomenal.
I would love to just hear about that on another episode, please.
Next time. Yeah, it was phenomenal. A goddess trip is what we called it. There were 7 of us girls that went, visited the temples. Anyhow, I had just gotten back, and I had switched back into that conditioned brain of, well, I've just been away for 3 weeks, and in 3 weeks from now, I've got Christmas holidays coming, and I should, and I'm always cautious with that word. I coach people around a lot.
Should.
Watching that. But I fell into that trap. I should probably work like 5 full days a week, for these 3 weeks so that I can catch up. And, again, comes from a good space. I want to help people. I want to make sure that people's needs are being met. But I let myself kind of forget myself.
Where are you putting those deposits?
Exactly. So it's like, oh, it's 3 weeks. And, and I don't generally see people like 9 to 5 days a week. It's a lot.
I bet.
Because it's a lot of bandwidth.
Holy.
And there's all the extras in life. But I made that decision by the middle of the second week. I was using my cat to clean up the water that he had spilled because I was just so
done,
ragey.
Well, and it's too much.
And right then it's like, right, this is why I make those choices, because my cat, in your case, like your young kids, my kids are a little older, but it doesn't matter if they're older. They don't deserve to be, part of our rage, right? And it wasn't that there was anything wrong with me. It was my body saying, sweetie, you're just doing too much.
Yeah.
So how can we scale that back? What have you not been doing that you love doing, that you do that and your whole day changes, right?
So we're not doing that again, are we?
Oh, no.
I think that's a good
for the
decision.
sake of the cat.
For the sake of the cat. Oh my God. It's funny though. It's like a lot of us feel like we're not doing something. If we're not doing something, it's like there's no value in it, and there's so much value in doing nothing. Once a year I meet up with a girlfriend of mine from university. We leave our kids, we leave our husbands, and we try and do different things. Sometimes we'll tour around, like your Egypt trip where you see a lot of things. But this year, her and I were both just burnt out after Christmas. So we did not leave the resort at all. We never do all-inclusive. We're travelers. Like I will stay and backpack and go through anywhere. But we knew our bodies needed to relax and not take care of anybody. Mm-hmm. And when we came back, we were new people to our families.
Exactly.
It was wonderful.
Such a perfect example of that. That's such a perfect example. And it's true. I will sit with my people and I will say, well, I'm going to write this down on your prescription, right? Is that we're just going to redefine productivity, because you think you're not being productive by having a nap in the middle of the day or letting yourself have a bubble bath and read your novel, but you're actually being very productive, because that's the time your body's taking to heal. That's the time your nervous systems are actually getting a chance to just unwind. And the most important thing we can do is to allow our nervous systems to move into what we call parasympathetic nervous system, which is rest, digest, heal, reproduce. Like, we literally can't heal when we're not in that state. It's just physiologically impossible.
So the more we're there, the better it is, I bet.
Absolutely. And the cool thing is, our inner wisdom will tell us when it's time to get off the beach lounger and go for a walk, right? We just have to listen, and we have to be present and patient long enough, because guaranteed, once your buckets were filled, mm-hmm. you guys would have gotten bored.
Totally.
You would have gotten itchy.
I think it took us like 3 days, and then we're like, okay, let's check out the like buffets and all of these other
Well, and that's exactly what we have to always keep reminding ourselves, is it's not going to last forever. If you let yourself lay on the couch, like maybe it'll last for, a week because you're that exhausted. But at some point, your bucket will be filled. And if you can just keep loving yourself through whatever guilt is coming up, you will feel resourced enough, and it'll get dull. You'll want to go for that walk. You'll want to go for that fresh air. You'll want to do the things that you were trying to push yourself to do before you were resourced enough to do them, right? So the quickest way to heal is just to honor ourselves. Truly.
I love that. Listen to yourself. If you feel stressed, chill.
Yeah.
So people come into your office at 10 after you've done your meditations, and I imagine, do you eat a breakfast every morning and all that sort of stuff? I'm not the biggest breakfast eater.
Well, I have to be honest, my body doesn't love eating first thing in the morning either. And, it's supported by the volumes of, positive information about intermittent fasting that's out there.
Yeah.
Our bodies do like a minimum of 12 hours without food overnight. It's a really good chance to repair and reset. And then if you can go to 14, 16, again, it's listening to individual body chemistry. Some people I know wake up and they're famished. I would never tell them to override that. But for me, I can usually put off. So truth be told, I make a smoothie.
Oh, nice.
And I sit at my desk with it. And I like to work through lunch. I don't take a lunch. That's part of me starting later.
Nice.
I can just kind of go and, from 10 to about 4:30.
Sounds like a perfect office day, you know?
Yeah, just, roll from person to person and can sip my good, healthy, nutrient-dense smoothie. Just working with people until, towards the end of the day.
What do most people, would you say, come and talk to you about? Is it physical, mental? I'm not sure what you would even put into what categories or anything, since it's just the body. But
yeah, well, just honestly anything. One of the things that naturopathic medicine is really skilled at doing is catching people in gray areas, meaning people know they don't feel well. They know that something's wrong. They know it's not usual to get acne when you're 43. They're not necessarily sleeping through the night, but all the conventional tests say that they're fine, right? Mm-hmm. And they're told they're fine because your blood work looks fine, sort of thing. And so that's where people really come to us. I mean, all kinds of people who have the diagnoses come, people who don't and are just like, I just want to feel better. I heard about cleansing. Can you put me on a cleanse? Like, honestly, anything. Like, people can just be like, I'm just curious, because there's always something that can be done. So, but I would say the vast majority of people who kind of fall in that area of, they just don't feel themselves and they want to feel themselves.
So, and then would your next take be about the debits and credits for all of those people that come in and ask them how they're taking care of themselves?
Yeah, I guess so. So yeah, just to kind of give a little bit more background on that. So and to sort of finish that, like mental, physical, emotional, spiritual.
Yes.
Honestly, we will see whoever walks in our doors. And of course, certain individuals maybe specialize a little bit more. Some naturopathic doctors might like to see a lot of pediatrics, and some might want to work exclusively with athletes or what have you. So there is nuances there. So I just always invite people to check out the different people that are out there and see who resonates.
And I'm sure your website has all that information if they were wanting to find out more about you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Prairie Sky Integrative Health has the information for all the naturopathic doctors and practitioners in the clinic, and then we all have our own websites. So again, we all have our different sort of areas of forte that we like to focus on. And so then to go back to that question about what I call the health equation. So I was saying to Kathy as we were chatting beforehand, before starting our more formal talk, is what comes up a lot in my day-to-day conversations is, my describing health as a very simple equation. Again, it's not always an easy equation to be able to kind of implement in our lives, but it's essential, is that health is like a bank account, right? You can only have a healthy bank account if you make more deposits than you make withdrawals. As soon as those are reversed, you're going broke, you're going bankrupt, you don't have enough to make your ends meet. And it's the same thing with health. If we don't put enough deposits in, the pottery, the breath work, the cuddle time, the novel time, the time on the beach, the time with the girlfriend, the time on one's own,
lots of pieces,
whatever
so
those
many
are,
pieces, yeah.
Those are individual deposits. Again, I would say across the board, time in nature, moving the body, and time alone, even for people who are maybe more extrovertedly wired, that time, because we're the only person we're going to live with for our whole lives, right? It's so important that we intimately know ourselves, and we won't if we don't sort of spend some sort of time cultivating that, which your pottery would give you, right?
Oh, I love it.
So those are what we would call deposits. And so we all, even though there's some that are fundamentally important for all of us, healthy nutrition, good hydration, those are so important for everyone. And then we all have our nuanced ones, the ones that really light us up, that we want to be able to do. So as soon as the balance, though, is outweighed with withdrawals, right? So you're driving the kids here and, have this work assignment and project, and then trying to, maintain the household, and, external pressures and internal pressures, because we also put a lot of internal pressure on ourselves to do all those things perfectly and feel like we need to do the baking for the potluck rather than buy it or, whatever it is.
Totally.
Right.
Cook fancy meals when you could just make a quick salad. I don't know.
Exactly. All of those things that really require, mindfulness and presence and being able to have that introspective ability to really ask ourselves, do I really want to do that? Or am I doing that out of guilt or obligation, etc.? Because all of those are what we could consider withdrawals. And so a lot of us, a lot of people live their lives bankrupt, right? And so we can't have health in that state because we don't have enough deposits. We're not resourced enough. And so when we're not resourced enough, it does feel like, how do I make it through another day? And then we get into such a vicious cycle because then now we can't sleep. Well, that lack of sleep makes things worse, right? Well, and because we haven't had that, then we rely on our caffeine crutches and our chocolate crutches. And then, well, we're kind of tired and amped up from that, and so again, we just sort of
Vicious
dig our
cycle.
hole deeper and deeper, right? And it's not, again, this is where a lot of these concepts are very simple, right? But it doesn't make them easy. But what I also like to remind people is they're not easy until they become easy. Because probably the decision to do that pottery in the morning is easy now.
I love it.
It might not have been, but it becomes it because you realize, why would I not? It's so much harder to feel crappy every day. So this is a worthwhile investment, and then that starts to dig us out of that hole. And we start to kind of come into this constructive cycle that these habits feed upon other habits. And now we start to feel healthier and more energized, happier. Our relationships with ourselves are better. Our relationships with others become better, which means we pull more joy from those relationships and we get that more positive brain chemistry. So
it's a win-win-win-win-win.
It absolutely is.
Well, Julie, I can't thank you enough for giving us your time today to explain to us these important things that sound simple, but if it was so simple, we should be doing it. So let's take your advice today and kind of simplify things, take it down a notch, maybe do that 5-minute breathing work. If you go on to many resources on YouTube, or for free, there's so many 5-minute meditations that can start your day off in like such a different way.
And I would say to that, just really quickly, just pick one where you like the voice. And then just do that one over and over and over and over and over and over again. Because a lot of these things just require repetition. And we, again, live in this time where we can just chase fancy objects and shiny objects. And, I should do a different one. It's like, no, just do one.
I like that.
Stick. You might then get tired of it. Then you look for another one. But until then, just, if it isn't.
I like that. Let's spend some time on it and get to know it really well. Well, you guys, wasn't that a treat today? Make sure to reach out to Julie in her practice. I'm sure she can help you with getting to know you better, physically, mentally, spiritually, or wherever you go. So you guys take care out there. Bye now.
Bye. Thanks, Kathy.